Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here to debut Chainsaw Man Season 1, Episode 7 through 9. So, we of course are going through these episodes, and when we get to Episode 8, man, did things really kick off. Man, Episode 8 was amazing. And so really, we're creeping up on Chainsaw Man getting into epic territory. It's freaking awesome. And so yeah, it's kind of like a really good story that leads up to bigger and amazing things, and it's just awesome just watching the show. And even though I was to even have to have gone on and watched episode 8 via subtitles, I still was like, okay, all right, well, I can still watch the show, and I could watch the other 2 episodes on dub on YouTube somewhere. So with that said, we pick up with Division 4 where we left off, where they are kind of stuck still in Hotel Morin. And we, of course, have Denji, who is to have Aki get the knife into his chest. So we have Denji, who states that he doesn't want anybody sacrificing anything for him because he doesn't want to owe them one. So Denji is now going to make the ultimate sacrifice, possibly to help out the rest of his team, and whether Denji wins or loses, that will lead the rest of these characters to go on and get their freedom that they so rightfully or desperately want. So we, of course, will go on to showcase more of Himeno and Aki's backstory in these episodes. We'll end up finding out that the villains of this story are starting to really figure out or find out what is going on with these devil hunters, and we really start to see this real escalation of all these characters. At some point there might be a character that I'm not quite sure what exactly his name exactly is, because I've heard 2 different areas have him with 2 different names. So at some point people can go on and correct me. But I was to go on and see either Katana Man, or I was to see Samurai Sword as this character's name, and so people can go on and correct me if at some point they go on and state this character's name for whatever reason. But also we're really seeing Makima and her ability, and I'm like, whoa. She goes on and doesn't even have to be there, and she's murdering and killing people. Freaking awesome. But yeah, so we of course also get to showcase a little bit more of the characters that we thought were very weak right around these episodes. We get to see them in a much more stronger light here, which is kind of nice. And we also get to see people really getting murdered in the show. Man, do we just go on and just see a lot of people, guns being whipped out and pa! And I'm like, wow, this is getting crazy. This is amazing. And we also end up getting some really good story with Himeno here. And I was really just thoroughly just pleased overall by what they did here. One thing that I wanted to go on and state here, that at some point I'm probably going to be introduced to new characters that, of course, did not go on and have their name be stated in the episode. Maybe they did have it stated and I'm butchering it, so I apologize. We have characters like Kishibe, that of course is to be Himeno's kind of mentor, and of course I'm probably going to butcher that name at some point in these episodes. But we also get a little bit of flashback retying back in Pochita, so that is also really cool, because of course I kind of kept this picture just because it was easy, just okay, let's just keep this one picture and not have to go on it and shift or change or whatever, because of course just trying to not have to go on and do extra additional work. So with that said, so we see these characters like at like the highest threat level, but then we also within these episodes have them share a beer or two, and I thought that that was really interesting. I was like, man, like this is so cool to kind of really see like how big this whole like devil hunting thing really is, and how many members are involved. And like they go on and they could probably state it's like, well, yeah, like there's X number of groups, but like I don't really I don't really feel like there's a huge massive number, no matter how many times they can go on and tell me that, like, oh well, obviously if this is Division 4, then that obviously means that there has been other groups. Yeah, but like you really don't get to like feel like the numbers until these episodes, because we really are just so focused on Denji's story. So with that said, yeah, these episodes were getting into epic territory. It was freaking awesome. Episode 8 was amazing. Go on and hopefully try to find these episodes in English dubbed. I had to forcibly watch episode 9 in subtitles, and I was like, okay, like, alright, this is good enough for me. Because at least I'm not going through a number of episodes trying to play catch up. So I could easily have figured out what was going on throughout these bits of episodes, and hopefully that will showcase that when we actually get into spoilers. Let me know in the comments below how you felt about these episodes, or how you've been feeling about Chainsaw Man whatsoever. But yeah, I think it's about that time to just double fire this bad boy up, because I think it's about that time yet again to, of course, go into spoiler time. Spoiler time is about that time again to spoil this bit of episodes. So we, of course, pick up where we left off in Hotel Morin, and we have Denji that, of course, is telling Aki that he does not want him to go on and, like, sacrifice himself for Denji, because enough people had kind of given Denji debt, and he doesn't want to be in anyone else's debt. So Denji decides that he's going to jump down this elevator shaft and hopefully figure out a way to kill off this thing and keep just destroying it, and hope for the best. So we have Denji that goes on and drops down there and is just chopping away. And so then we go on to have Himeno that is talking to her mentor in the past, Hibishi, or Hishibi, and we have Himeno who is kind of just standing over the grave of one of her partners, and Hibishi is to state that the one true X factor that every single devil hunter should have is that they should go on and have a screw loose. They should be crazy. And if they are perfectly sane, then they're probably going to wind up dead, like a lot of the rookies that Aki would eventually cry over when they would die so soon. So we, of course, have Kibishi that ends up talking to Himeno, and it's like, well, hey, like, how is Aki? And Himeno is like, well, like, he's after the Gun Devil, so I'm assuming that he probably has a screw loose himself. And it's like, well, yeah, but like, but he'll be a good partner for you. And like his last words to Mino is like, well, maybe you should go on and like, obviously you should figure out a way to make yourself much less sane, because you going on and just grieving over all of your past partners is to really just state that you're much more sane. So like, you should figure out a way to just kind of let loose. So we go on to have Denji that is chopping his way through of course, the Eternity Devil, and we have a point where Himino and Aki are just kind of resting, and it's like, well, how long have we been here for? It's like 3 days. It's like, well, hey, I'm just gonna go on and finally just get some rest. So we have Denji that is going on, and he's getting like kind of just torn apart by this thing, but he's also just kind of slicing through it consistently. And Power even had stated that it's, well, hey, he's gonna probably lose blood pretty soon. And what Denji starts to do is he starts chopping this thing up and consuming its blood, just kind of keeping his energy alive. So we have Denji even stating that it's like, well, hey, like your blood tastes awful, but like it's gonna keep me going, like chugging on soda. And so after these 3 days, we finally have the Eternity Devil that gives up against Denji and is to just present his heart to Denji and is to tell him, like, please just kill me. So you would have thought that, like, Denji would have just gone on and stated, like, no, like, just release us. Like, we'll let you live. Just kind of like, just how about we'll make a bargain that way? Like, we'll let you live, and if you don't kill anybody, like, you can have this hotel if you want. But no, Denji goes on and cannot wait to just chop this head that is, so I guess, supposedly metaphorically like some heart. So we then have Division 4 that is walking out of Hotel Morin, and they're like, yeah, like we're freaking out of here. Thank God. So we go on to have the next thing be that Aki is still looking for the next uh, bullet chunk from, of course, the Gun Devil, and they had gotten it from some demon that, like, the remains are just so scattered you can't tell exactly what it is. So we have Aki who's looking at this bullet chunk. He's like, okay, I got a little piece of him. So Himino is talking that Ari and Kobini are thinking about leaving because they want to go to the private sector, because they feel very ashamed for the fact that they were to want to easily sacrifice Denji, possibly for the good of the group, but still, like, they have to live with that decision. And Himino is just like, well, like, they might as well just go on and just kind of live with the shame and just be like, oh well, like Denji's not going to hold any grudges or anything. So we even have a point where a flashback to both Himino and Aki, and they're sharing this kind of a meal together. And Himino is asking Aki, it's like, well, hey, like, how about you and me? How about we both go to the private sector? Like, we can go to movies, like, we can kind of have a lot more fun together, and we can get paid better. And Aki's like, well, like, that's great and all, but no. Like, you can, like, we can go on and share beers all we want together, but no, like, I'm not going to go on. And like, I have a good thing going here, and I don't want to change that. So we of course have them kind of sharing their food, and so we also have Himino that is talking to Aki, and it seems like they're going to go on and have this kind of get together, this soiree, with all of the other devil hunters. And so I think Aki is asking if Makima is going to be there. And so, yeah, so we have this whole get together with all of the devil hunters, and we have some really interesting characters, which even after episode 8, they won't have a huge lifespan, but we get to really see some characters that I was like, okay, this character's cool. I like this guy. I like these characters. But what a short life that they'll probably lead. So we have them all going to this bar. I'm sure they probably even named it in the episode, but I kind of was to kind of miss that fact. So we have certain devil hunters that are going on, and like one of them is to talk to Power, and is to ask her, it's like, well, hey, how high is your IQ? And Power's like, well, I think it's like 100. And the girl's like, no, like your IQ is probably higher than that. Like my IQ is 100, so you must be having an IQ bigger than that. And Power's like, well, I think it's probably between 500 and 1,000. It's like, because she has like no clue what an IQ is. So I just thought it was funny. So we have also like Devil Hunters like Fushi that is kind of getting into the conversation and talking here. So we have one of the older Devil Hunters that is talking to Denji and going on and telling him like, hey man, like you're a growing boy, you should eat up. And Denji's like, well, I don't even know how to like read any of this. And Denji's like, I don't know what to order. So we of course have Denji that is looking at Himino. It's like, well, hey, like when am I gonna go on and get that kiss? Because like that's all I did for 3 days. Cause man, when we have this guy who is to possibly get some kind of goal to achieve, man, does this guy go crazy for that. So like the willpower in Denji is insane. So Denji is almost like as close to like a dog with a bone. Like if you kind of hold it from him, like he's just gonna go after it more. So Denji, you should really go on and keep giving him a goal to achieve and keep teasing him to the point of Denji then going off to then realize that he is to live another day to get to this goal, to achieve what he believes to be like the like mission accomplished kind of thing at the end of the day. So, but we have Denji that is talking to Himino, and it's like, well, hey, like when are we gonna get that kiss? Himino's like, well, I'm not drunk enough for that, and so all of a sudden Makima starts walking to the bar. It's like, which hand did you slap? What Denji? What now? Who's kissing who here? So we have Denji that is to go on to be like, oh, like nobody, like hell no, nobody's, and then like Himino's like, wait a minute, we're not gonna kiss, and Denji's like, no. So he's trying to like play like both sides here. Like he really wants to go on and win over Makima, but he's also looking at Himino, and he's like, we're still on rain check. So he's kind of like at two sides of the coin here, where he wants to kind of have his cake and eat it too, and he's just kind of figure out what plate he needs to go on and put that on at to kind of word this in a perfect way. So we have everybody just starting to get hammered, and so we have Himino that obviously states that she ends up drinking like her weight in beer. And so Himino finally goes on to kiss Denji, and what happens is, of course, she goes on to give him a slip of the tongue. Denji, of course, is to like it at first, but then all of a sudden there seems to be some kind of some chucking going on, transitional chucking. So come to find out, we have Himino that is to barf inside Denji's mouth. And Denji's like, oh. So Denji now runs to the bathroom, and he's hurling this up because he had first swallowed it, because Power is like, well, hey, like, if that throw up has any, like potential proteins in it, he's gonna swallow it forcibly. So Denji forcibly swallows it and goes in the toilet, just blah! And so Arai is just kind of comforting him, and it's like, hey man, like, so we have this flashback of Denji and Pochita, and we have the two of them kind of just dumpster diving for these meals, and like, they're like, yeah, like this is great. Like I don't care if it is kind of secondhand food, But then we have Denji that is kind of looking on at like other homeless people that are going on and just kind of eating other people's barf. So it's like, well, hey, like at least we're not as bad as that. So yeah, they had gone on and done some like dumpster diving and whatever, but still, like at least they're not as bad as that. They figured out how to kind of get by. So we have Denji who's talking to Arai and or Ari, uh, Hirokazu, Hirokazu, and so we have Denji who's stated it's like, well, yeah, like that is like my first like real kiss, and every time I'm gonna go on and kiss somebody else, I'm immediately gonna come back to that first kiss that I had that really was just like the smell of that, and just like it's gonna scar him for life. It's kind of like in movie Signs, where we of course have uh, Mel Gibson and his brother character, uh, Joaquin Phoenix, and he's going on and having that story about him going to this party, and he was to possibly kiss this drunk girl, but he kind of took his gum out at the right moment, and the girl hurled, and we had Joaquin's character that's like, oh, thank God I was to have taken that gum out, or otherwise, like, I would have been kissing her and she would have barfed at that time, and I would have been scarred for life. And that was the moment where he was thinking, it's like, well, yeah, like, I'm definitely a miracle man, or that I have faith. So, we have Denji that is kind of in this drunken stupor, and we have Makima that is like, man, this was like a really good night out. Like, it's good that we all got out here, and like we have Makima who picks up the tab for everybody, and we of course have characters like Kobeni that is like, well, yeah, like the best alcohol is the one that you don't have to pay for. This is the girl Kobeni that ends up talking about that she of course was to wear hand-me-downs from her older sister, and she kind of talks about certain things that she's into. One of the devil hunters is like, oh my god, she's cute. Really don't know what this character, who this character's name was. But yeah, like at some point I'll probably figure it out because I haven't really seen her in the other episodes past this. So maybe she's still alive, unless they executed Order 66, and we'll figure that out. We'll figure out who's left by the end of all this. So we go on to have Makima that is to ask, like, well, hey, like, where is Denji? And I think we have Aki that states that Himino was to kind of grab Denji and kind of like piggyback him to her place. So Himino goes on and takes Denji and is to kind of slap him on this bed. And so we get Himino that just kind of like just takes off all of her clothes with the exclusion of some of her knightly garments. And trying to be very vague here because there's a reason for that. So we have Himino that is to want to go on and get alcohol, and Denji's like, oh my god, my head hurts, and Denji's desperately asking for water, and Himino goes on and takes this swig of beer, gets on top of Denji, and is to kind of drink the beer into Denji's mouth as they kiss. So I guess trying to like maybe resolve the whole barfing taste by having them both just have like beer from both of them. So we have Himino that's asking Denji, it's like, well, hey, like, why are you here? Like, this is my place. And then she's like, oh, like, I brought you here, I guess. Like, Himino is so drunk. She's so sloshed. And so Denji, of course, is to go on and want to be a gentleman here. So we, of course, by the end of this episode, go on and have Himino that is to talk is like, well, hey, do you want to do it? So in the following episode, we again like replay a good chunk of these scenes, and so we have Himino that states to Denji, it's like, well, hey, do you want to do it? And he's like, do what? And she's like, well, like fool around. I'm trying to avoid cussing. She ends up using the F word. So Denji's like, yes. And so as there is to be portions of Denji's clothes that start to get removed, we then all of a sudden have Denji start to realize, especially when Himino is to look into Denji's pockets and find this weird lollipop. So, come to find out, Makima is to talk to Denji outside the bar. And Makima ends up getting Denji this nausea medication and is like, well, hey, drink plenty of water because you're going to get really hungover because you've, of course, never gone on to drink because he's 16. And we have Himino that is like, wait a minute, you're 16? Like, what are you drinking? And Denji is like, well, I'm drinking tea. I'm like, how much freaking tea did he drink? Did he have Long Island iced tea? And they didn't card him? Or what? What happened here? How is Denji seemingly almost so drunk? Maybe from secondhand Himino? I don't know. But so we have Makima that gives her lollipop to Denji, and it's stated, it's like, well, you would technically got like a secondhand kiss in some way. But yeah, so they're building up the Makima and Denji thing. So we have Denji who realizes that after the reveal of this lollipop, Denji has to be a gentleman and just can't go on and take advantage of a very drunken moment. He has to pull the gentleman card and just be like, I'm sorry, Himino. Like, I know that you might have wanted to go on and fool around, but I have to just save myself from Makima. Heavy is the white knight that is to bear that burden. He could have gone on and could have just gotten something, but instead, like, he of course is to settle for pining away. So we of course go into the next day where we have Denji and Himino, and Himino is talking about, like, man, like, I don't remember anything about last night, like what happened. And so we of course have Denji who's like kind of filling in some blanks for Himino and trying to help her out. So Himino and Denji kind of have this pact that kind of, with the way that these episodes play out, we'll kind of see how far that real pact goes, but it's kind of heartbreaking. So Himino talks to Denji and is to state, it's like, well, hey, like, you're probably really into Makima, aren't you? And Denji's like, well, yeah. So Himino's like, well, hey, how about you and I just have this kind of pact, and like, I'll help you, like, I'll be your wingman, and I'll kind of help you get Makima, and you can kind of help me seal the deal on Aki. And like, at some points you can kind of just come over here and we can kind of just have a meal together and like really be good friends. And Denji's like, well, like, that'd be great. And she's like, well, yeah, kind of bring your bring your friends over. So we of course go on to have our characters meet here, and or no. So we have Makima. Makima is going on this train to Kyoto, and she's having her assistant go on and tell her that she, of course, is having these certain meals, and so Makima's like, well, okay, like, well, with all these kind of big wigs around, I feel very uncomfortable by eating, and so I'll just have to go on and just kind of have a little bit kind of reserved for this other thing. So while Makima is going on and getting this criteria of what she's going to do for the day, that's when all of a sudden these guys just whip out these guns and just start firing away on Makima. And they all of a sudden have this radio and they're like, Team C, we are a go. And I'm like, what the heck? What happened here? So we all of a sudden have like Order 66 that ends up coming down, and it gets freaking crazy. So we all of a sudden have Kobeni and Ari, and they're just kind of just kind of walking, like helping an old lady kind of get some instructions and stuff like that. So after they kind of walk by, we have this old lady who goes on, whips out this gun. She just starts firing at these people. So I was like, oh my god, this is freaking crazy. But so awesome. So we now go on to have like Himino and Denji and Aki and all these kind of devil hunters just kind of just together. They're all eating together. So like nobody's going on and just talking about last night. They're like, hey, last night, that's pretty wild, right? Himino, like you were singing karaoke and just dancing away. No, it was none of that. So like kind of filling in the gaps of stuff that maybe we didn't get or we didn't get to see or whatever, some goofy funny thing. But so we all of a sudden have, while they're eating and they're eating ramen, we have a guy next to them that is going on and saying, Denji, it's like, well, like, you must have crappy taste because this ramen is not that good. And like a person that eats kind of like crappy food has crappy taste. So we had this guy that goes on to state that, like, well, yeah, like I used to get fed by this relative of mine that used to be involved in the Yakuza. And we're like, oh my god. And so we have this guy who is to say, it's like, well, yeah, I really loved him. So he whips out the picture of the Yakuza guy that Denji had killed in prior episode that he had been involved in. I'm like, oh my god. And so we find out that this is Katana Man, and he's like, well, yeah, like, I bet you loved him too, Denji. And then we go on to have a Katana Man that whips out this gun, fires on Denji's head. And I'm like, oh my god, is he dead? I'm waiting for just one wound to just be like the one wound that kills Denji. So Denji's down, and so all of a sudden everybody's like, what the heck? So we all of a sudden have our characters going on to get to the third floor of the Nerima Nishibai building. The Nishibi building. And so we have Aki that is desperately trying to figure out like how to fight off this Katana Man, and it seems that what he tries to do is, like, at first, like, he tries to like figure out a way to take him out by releasing this curse devil, and that seems to at first work, and they're like, oh, thank god. Whoo! Like, hey guys, looks like we made it. But then all of a sudden, we then bring in Sawatari, that is to kind of bring back Katana Man, and it's like, oh no, like this isn't done. This isn't over yet. So we have Power, and we have Himeno, and him and so we have Himeno trying to talk to Power. It's like, well, hey, like you should go on and you should kind of jump in. And Power's like, hey, Katana Man is way too fast. I would probably just get chopped up to bits. So Himeno's like, well, I guess I'm just gonna have to step in here. So Himena, blah. Himeno ends up going on to like ask for the Ghost Devil to kind of help her out here, and the Ghost Devil's like, no, like I don't think I'm good enough for this guy. And so Himeno ends up going on to then like, well, hey, if I give you everything, like you're gonna give up your everything against this guy. Because what happened was, with this big huge explosion, what happened was Aki ended up calling for the fox demon to crash its way through this building to consume the Katana Man. And what just happened was is the Devil Fox is telling Aki that, well, hey, like, I don't know what you made me just swallow, but this thing is not human, but it's also not a devil. So Katana Man just chopped right through the Fox Devil, and like we're right back to where we are. To where like that's why like this building is to be just like rubble like it is. So we have now Himeno that's using all of her powers with this Ghost Devil, and when Himeno is consistently having to use up this Ghost Devil, Himeno is starting to lose like her arms, all of her limbs. Like she's almost losing everything to try to take Katana Man down. And so Himeno is going on and telling Aki, it's like, well, hey, like, Aki, you better live past this so you can mourn my loss. And because Himeno is realizing she's going to die for Aki. So, as well as Aki had gotten stabbed when he wasn't expecting that the Katana Man would go on and kind of appear from behind him and stab him. So, because like Katana Man has this kind of weird ability to kind of like double himself, and so we have Sawatari, Sawatari, that ends up just calling for the Snake Devil to just come in and just jump the Ghost Devil and just kill the Ghost Devil, which that kills Himeno. And so like we have the Ghost Devil that just kind of gets away with just this hand, and that's it. So at some point we're gonna go on and maybe see the Ghost Devil come back, but I'm just like, man, that was pretty insane. So now that it feels that everything is just kind of wiped out here, we have it seem that Katana Man and Sawatari have both won, and so now we of course have, I think the following, or we have now Denji, who of course the Ghost Devil had kind of pulled his ripcord, and that kind of brought him back. So we now have the following episode that, of course, is to be much more in subtitles. So, come to find out, Power had escaped. She just ran off because she's like, no, like I'm not gonna go after these people because I'm gonna die. We had Katana who is talking to Sawarati, Akane, the girl with the red hood. I'm gonna butcher this name consistently. So we had Katana talking to her, and it's to say like, well, hey, like, should we go after her? And the girl's like, no, like we came here for Denji. That's what we're here for. So Denji comes back. It's like, well, hey, like, I don't know what's going on here, but it looks like you guys are bad guys. So I like going and taking on bad guys because no one goes on and questions what I'm going to do to these people, and I can easily just carve them up with no problem. So, while we have Katana Man that is going up against Denji, we have Kawatari that goes on and calls for reinforcements. So 2 other men are coming up with guns to kind of go up against Denji. So we have at one point where Denji is to grab one of the guy's goons, and it's like, well, hey man, like I got one of yours, like, so like you guys are gonna back off now to save this guy, right? And Katana Man's like, are you serious? No. So Katana Man just goes on to chop his own man as well as both Denji in half, just by the waist, just chops them in half. So we have Katana Man and these goons that go on to just kind of drag Denji to this van. So we now have to go on and discuss Makima. So at this train station at Kyoto, we have these 2 characters that are Kurose and Tendo, and we have them both kind of waiting for Makima to show up at this train station, and they're both like, okay, like, is she coming? Because all of a sudden we have this other person that goes on and states that, like, all of these like divisions and all these groups have all been assaulted, they've all been killed, and so like, so are we like wasting our time standing here? And so by the time that this train stops, we have Makima come out, and she's all bloody, and they're like, oh my god, were you shot? And she's like, no, like, this isn't my blood, like, this is just a bunch of other people. And everybody who gets out of the train is like running out of the train, like they're crazed. Come to find out, Makima was to kill every single one of the guys that were trying to kill her. And, like, we find that there are big, massive holes in their body, and it's freaking great. So, we have Makima that starts coming and concocting with a plan with these 2 others. And so she starts listing that she wants, like, 30 some odd life sentence convicts. She wants a temple that it's kind of at a high altitude, and she also wants a set of clean clothes. So we have these people that are like, okay, like, whatever you want, Makima. So like the Tendo, we're kind of thinking like, well, should we just go back to headquarters? Like, should we go to like hopefully a sanctuary that can protect us or help us? But no, like, Makima's just like, no, just give me some life sentence criminals, and I'll get the job done. So the next thing we see is a bunch of like life sentence criminals that are all just, they're eating in this van. And they're like, hey, where are we going? And the guy's like, hey, shut up. And so Guy's like, okay, well, this might be our last meal, so enjoy it while you can. So we have Sabratari that is with Katana Man, and like Katana Man is saying like, hey, like I'm feeling pretty weak, and so like you might not have me be able to help you out here for whatever's going on next. So Sawatari is like, oh, okay, it's fine. So we all of a sudden have the guys that are kind of dragging Denji's body, and we all of a sudden start to see that one of them is starting to freak out because he's seeing these birds. And it's like, hey man, just drag this body to this van. He's like, no, it's weird. Because we have, of course, Makima that is to set up all of these criminals and can I have them kind of sit in these lines? And Makima is one by one telling them to go on and state certain names. And once they go on to state those certain names, those convicts, as well as whoever the names were to have their body explode somewhere or another. Like as if this is like freaking Death Note. We go into full-on Death Note people. So Makima is going on and I guess like figuring out a way like with her hands to like showcase how certain people are gonna die. She's like doing these kind of like these weird kind of like twist and turny things with her hands. And so we have Tendo and we have Kurose or Kurose. I'm gonna butcher those names. We have the two of these people that are both blindfolded, and we have Tendo who's talking to the girl, and it's like, well, hey, like why are we blindfolded? And the girl ends up stating that Miss Kamina reports directly to the chief cabinet's secretary, and this is of course above our pay grade. This is above our clearance, so like that's why we're blindfolded. And like I don't even want to know what she's doing, so like as long as we're not going to be affected by this, like I'm oakley dokley. So we start to see all these men just start to run off because they think we're gonna die. So one guy even grabs a woman and is holding a gun to her. It's like, well, hey, somebody help me! Someone help! And then he just explodes and the woman's just like, oh my god, I'm just covered in blood. So we now have Katana Man and his red-hooded sidekick, and we have Kobini that comes back. She's still alive, her and her braids and or whatever goofy little clips that she has in her hair. So she's back and she has like her hair kind of down a little bit more. I'm like, all right, good look. So Kobini is just like, take no freaking prisoners. Because someone had gone on to kill her partner. So Kobini, come to find out when she was helping out, oh, I'm an old lady, I'm an elderly woman, oh, I have no teeth. When that girl whips out this, the granny rips out this gun and starts firing, we have Ari that kind of takes the bullet for this girl. And so she's like, oh no, like you done messed with the wrong woman. Kobini takes the gun from this granny and is to kill her off. And it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna find anybody else. I'm gonna go after them. So Kobini comes in and she is to like have this like really good kind of like speed. And we all of a sudden have Sawatari that is to send out the Snake Devil, and Kobini is just like, oh no, like, you ain't gonna get me with that. Kobini just jumps on this thing and just starts to ride the snake, and they're like, oh my god, we're gonna freaking die. So we have Katana Man and we have Sawatari that goes into the van, and they're like, dude, like, we're just gonna get out of here. it's better to be alive than sorry. So we even have Kobeni that uses Denji's half body as a shield. And so we then have them drive off, and so Kobeni is crying because she's talking to Denji, and she's so sorry that she had gone on and tried to sacrifice him before, because he may go on and be their only hope. And so I was like, dang, that's pretty freaking sweet. So we go on to have Makima that is to make her way to meet up with Madoka, the guy that we saw in that get together from before. Is like, okay, cool, like we're really starting to like see certain characters, but again, like I'm curious about other devil hunters that I was to see before, like what had gone on and what had happened to characters like God, he was in the early part of this too. Let me pause there for a second. Bushi and his partner, like there was somebody that was behind them and whipping out their gun and wanting to, like, did they die? Are they still alive? So we have Makoto, who goes on to talk to Makima, and she has the two goons behind her. So we have Mikado that states that considering that all of these teams have all been like killed all at the same time, they're just going to go on and condense all the teams together to just have them be led by Makima. And so Makima's like, well, okay, Makoto, like that sounds great. And so we have Makoto that's like, well, Makima, I want to go on and I want to give you something. And Makima's like, oh, what is this? It's a piece of paper. It's Makoto's resignation, because he's like, I am realizing like how dangerous this really is, and like I'm out, like I'm done with this job. And so Makoto also tells Makima that the only people that are really left are the devil hunters that seem to be non-human. It seems to be the ones that are mostly left. So I'm like, oh my god, is Kobeni, is she non-human? Is she a non-human devil hunter? If not, then like is like her speed thing, is that just it? Like, cuz I'm curious. I'm intrigued. So maybe she just has like a sense of things more so than anybody. But anyways, going on. So Makoto is to resign, and so Makoto is like, but one thing, Makima, before you leave, like I just want to know, like how much did you go on, and how much did you anticipate before this whole thing got kicked off? And Makima is like, well, like I can't go on and discuss that matter with civilians, because that's of course what you are now, That's what you are, Mikado. You're just a civilian now. Like I can't go on and discuss strategy with the likes of you. And Makima just kind of walks off, and Mikado's just like, dang. Like if only I would have just like asked her that question and then given my papers. But again, more than likely she wouldn't have given him an answer, because who the f is this guy? Like we barely saw him in the show. So with that said, that's where we kind of leave off things with, of course, these episodes. So let me know in the comments below if there's anything that I did forget about. There might be a little bit of details, but I think I kind of luckily covered everything. But I'm like, man, there was so much to get into here. So hopefully I somehow was to get this correct, so on and so forth. We'll see how this all continues to play out. again, like, I think they've kind of, in the 8th episode, they kind of like done everything that they could do. So in other episodes, I'm like, how much bigger can this really get? Like, how much further can this really go? Because I felt like the 8th episode was really just like the season finale of the show. They kind of blew their load in that one episode, and so how much really story do they have left to tell here? Uh, and I'm kind of wondering if Chainsaw Man is going to get past the first season without killing everyone off. And also, I was kind of concerned, like, is Denji dead? Or is he still just going to, like, make it out of here? Because Denji, like, he didn't have, like, one line or one nothing kind of, like, giving us this feeling that he's still alive. But we have to naturally assume that because there is some body part still left with him. So, and also this is called Chainsaw Man. Like, if we were to go on and have this be uh, like a show that lives on and lives on without its main character, then that'll seem like a goofy thing to try to accomplish. But yeah, I'm assuming people are thrilled by this show, and a lot of people will probably want more. But who knows if they're gonna go on and continue and just finish up this season. But yeah, like, this show was to be something that I was like, okay, this sounds like just a goofy idea. But when we finally actually get into the show, I'm like, okay, like, there is some goofy things here, but like, I also uh, like this show can possibly feel relatable, or it can also, as way of which of like people just kind of really down on their luck and just desperately wanting that one chance or something like. I'm not saying like a Devil Hunter show could be something that could be relatable to people, but there could be a lot of people that also kind of put their lives at risk every day doing a job to try to get money and so on and so forth. But anyways, with that said, I'm gonna go on and get the heck out of here so I can go and try hopefully do another review for today. I apologize for otherwise not being here yesterday, even though I know that this is the end of the episode, so who really cares? But yeah, but I was spending 9 hours at a hospital, so yeah, like that's why I wasn't here. So my bad, but otherwise I was to luckily get this out for you. Bye everybody. Bye everybody.